5 novels with endings. The author regretted. Writing a novel takes years. Publishing it is permanent. And several of the greatest writers in history spent the rest of their lives wishing they could take their endings back. Number 5. Great Expectations. Dickens. Charles Dickens originally ended Great Expectations with Pip and Estella meeting briefly as near strangers, going their separate ways, and the novel closing on a note of quiet melancholy, which is honestly the correct ending for a book about the destruction of illusions. His friend Edward Bulwer Lytton read the manuscript and told him it was too bleak. The public wouldn't stand for it. Dickens, ever attuned to his audience, rewrote the ending, giving Pip and Estella a reconciliation that most scholars regard as both unconvincing and unnecessary. The original ending survives and is available to read. Most critics prefer it. Dickens himself never publicly said he regretted the change, but the original version's existence suggests he knew something had been lost. Number 4. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Hugo. Victor Hugo didn't exactly regret the ending of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He regretted what the public did with it. He wrote a novel about the destruction of medieval Paris, about architectural history, about the crushing of the poor by the church, and by those in power. Quasimodo and Esmeralda are in it, but they are not the point. Notre Dame Cathedral is the point. Hugo spent entire chapters on architectural description because he was writing, essentially, a eulogy for Paris being demolished by modernization. The public, the stage adapters, and eventually Disney extracted the love story, left the politics on the floor, and gave it a happy ending. Hugo died having written one of the great political novels of the 19th century, and been remembered primarily for a hunchback who rings bells. He would have found this maddening. Number 3. The Awakening, Kate Chopin. Kate Chopin published The Awakening in 1899, a novel about a married woman in New Orleans who gradually realizes she cannot live the life society has prescribed for her. It ends with her walking into the sea. The novel was savaged. Critics called it unhealthy, sordid, disagreeable. Chopin's literary reputation was effectively destroyed overnight. She was socially ostracized in St. Louis. Her publisher dropped her, and she wrote very little afterwards. She died 5 years later, largely forgotten. The Awakening is now considered one of the founding texts of American feminist literature. Chopin didn't regret the ending. The world just wasn't ready for it yet. Number 2. War and Peace, Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy spent years writing War and Peace. He then spent many of the remaining years of his life telling anyone who would listen that he found the second epilogue, an extended philosophical essay on the nature of history and free will, to be the most important part of the book. Nobody agreed. Readers skip it. Scholars regard it as an interesting curiosity. The novel's reputation rests on the first 1,000 pages. Tolstoy also, in his later life, repudiated most of his fiction, including Anna Karenina, which he came to see as morally frivolous, in favour of Christian asceticism. He called his greatest novels worthless. He died on a railway station platform, having abandoned his family, his estate, and his literary legacy. Whether he regretted the endings of his books or the life that produced them is difficult to disentangle. Number 1. The Picture of Dorian Gray, Wilde. Oscar Wilde's only novel was published in 1890 and immediately attacked as immoral, corrupting and homoerotic, which it is. deliberately, beautifully, and with tremendous wit. Wilde revised it the following year, adding a preface and 6 new chapters that softened some of the more overt elements. Then, when he was put on trial for gross indecency in 1895, prosecutors used the picture of Dorian Gray as evidence against him, reading passages aloud in court to demonstrate his moral corruption, a novel used as evidence at its author's criminal trial. The ending Wilde regretted was not the one he wrote, it was the one his life wrote for him. 2 years of hard labour, exile, poverty and death in a Paris hotel room at 46. He once said that he had put his genius into his life and only his talent into his work. The trial proved him right and cost him everything. The ending's author's regret tell us something worth knowing. Novels are written in private, in the silence between a writer and the page, but they land in a world that has its own needs, its own politics, its own appetite for punishment. The ending is never entirely yours, that's the bargain. Most writers don't fully understand that until it's too late. Subscribe to the margin notes and find out what else they didn't see coming.